somebody will win the cup. If Crystal Palace and Manchester United are still level after extra time tonight, then for the first time in the history of the competition, and whether they like it or not, there will be a penalty shootout. Welcome once again to Wembley, where the very last chapter of this year's FA Cup competition is about to unfold. It's been a wonderful story this year, with 22 goals scored in the semi-finals and last Saturday's match alone. And the extraordinary news here tonight for this replay is that Manchester United have dropped their Scottish international goalkeeper Jim Leighton, and Les Sealey, on loan to the club from Luton Town, there he is, plays in his stead. Well, Jimmy Hill and Bob Wilson will have their views on proceedings in due course, but straight away it's to our match commentators Trevor Brooking and first John Motson.
Thanks very much, Desmond. Good evening, everybody. Well, apart from that goalkeeping story, and more of that in a moment, two other big differences tonight. One already apparent, the strip that Crystal Palace are wearing, which was only delivered today to their hotel. And the other thing that you'll also notice, I'm sure, at home is the volume of both sets of supporters. Both clubs were allocated 26,000 tickets for tonight. In Palace's case, you can tell by the balloons, that's 12,000 more than on Saturday, and 20,000 tickets were on sale here at Wembley on Sunday. So plenty of those went to genuine fans, especially, obviously, London-based people. So not many neutrals here tonight, making it essentially a real football occasion. At the end of which, by hook or by crook, or by penalties, the FA Cup will be presented by His Royal Highness, the Duke of Kent. The two managers kept their team lineups as secret as they could until just before the kick-off. We'll have a check for you in a moment, but Palace followers may like to know that they're unchanged, with Ian Wright as a substitute. And as Desmond has said, the big news from the Manchester United camp, the appearance of Les Sealey. Steve Coppell there. Just let's straighten out one thing about the managers before we start tonight. Not, in fact, the youngest ever Cup final manager. Stan Cullis, 49 with Wolves, was a year younger, would you believe? But Steve at 34 with the smart buttonhole, getting ready for the protocol of the national anthem as His Royal Highness, the Duke of Kent, comes to the touchline. It's a lovely evening, and the full flavour of the FA Cup already apparent, with the crowd in good humour. So, the introductions about to take place, and as Crystal Palace are presented to His Royal Highness, who are quite familiar with them by now, as Jeff Thomas goes down the line. Trevor Brooking's with me again, and it gives me a chance, Trevor, just to ask you your thoughts. We'll have a check in a moment on the lineups, but the talk around Wembley is about the goalkeeper on the other side of Manchester United, but Palace is keeping it the same.
Well, Crystal Palace, first of all, a little bit disappointed Ian Wright perhaps isn't going to start the game. I can understand perhaps why, because you know, perhaps in the first 20 minutes of a cup final, everything's a bit frantic. There's a few lively tackles flying about, and perhaps Steve Coppell was a bit concerned that he could get a knock on that fracture that he's had a couple of times this season. So decided to keep things tight as they have been, and obviously we didn't want to unsettle the midfield area. Richard Shaw did an excellent job marking Neil Webb, and if he had to play in right, it would have meant Richard Shaw playing left back and losing a midfield player. So he's going to stick to the same tactics. And there's Manchester United going down the line. Brian Robson has done that a few times, hasn't he? And Alex Ferguson there shaking hands, probably just at the back of his mind, just wondering how that goalkeeping decision might go this evening.
The officials are still the same from Saturday, by the way. It's Alan Gunn of Sussex in the middle. Kept the game flowing well, I thought. And his two linesmen, Colin Reeve of Norfolk and Larry Watson from Coventry, with the reserve official, Roger Milford from Gloucestershire. So the teams break, and we can now take a check on the numbers and the lineups. And as I said, Crystal Palace are absolutely unchanged. Steve Coppell electing to keep Ian Wright in reserve on the bench, even though he played him in a practice match yesterday. So Phil Barber keeps his place wide, having come off on Saturday, and we'll see the tactical formation unfold when the game gets underway. But it's the same two substitutes, Wright and Madden. As for Manchester United, well, Alec Ferguson made up his mind before today, but kept it a tight secret, especially from the morning papers. The 10 outfield players are the same. Gary Pallister is fit after intense treatment on his ankle, but the big news is that Jim Leighton is dropped. And Les Sealey, on loan from Luton, after only 2 senior matches this season, both for Manchester United, at 32 years of age, gets a surprise call-up, although he has played at Wembley before for Luton in the Littlewoods Cup and the Seamod Cup finals. And I suspect one of the people surprised by that decision may be our own Bob Wilson, an expert on goalkeeping. What do you feel about it, Bob?
Well, I am very surprised, John. I think it's a bold, brave decision by Alex Ferguson. It'll be seen as a good one as long as United win. One thing Les won't lack is confidence, I can tell you that. I coached at Luton for a season, and I found him to be, well, to have a tremendous air of self-belief. He has an arrogance, he's a bossy character, which is good as long as he's in form. Ironically, he didn't play particularly well in those 2 Wembley finals, but Les is such a confident character, he'd even tell you that in his career he should have had representative honours. I feel very sorry for Jim Leighton, and unless he's injured or ill, I would say his United career is now over.
Yes, I'm sure that's a story that will be followed up very closely, Bob, tomorrow, because it puts Scotland in a peculiar predicament for the World Cup cover booking, doesn't it?
Well, that's the first thing that crossed my mind as well, apart from the news of tonight, the Scotland goalkeeping situation. Brian Gunn, of course, played last night, but it was a disappointing result for them, and it does throw it wide open. Andy Gorham, I suppose, for Vernian, the most likely, perhaps, now to be in line to take over. But tonight, Les Sealey, I suppose, a night of the East Enders, isn't it? Because Les is a real East End lad, and perhaps Alex Ferguson decided it might be a lucky mascot. But as Bob said, he doesn't lack in confidence, and really it's a case now of what drama, mistakes and goals we're going to get this evening after the incidents that we've had in previous rounds.
Just to remind our viewers that we have extra time tonight if the match is a draw after 90 minutes, and then, as Desmond said at the start, we would go into a penalty shootout, which has never happened in an FA Cup final, although it's happened in most of the other senior competitions across the world, and the referee and linesman will obviously have to be aware that that's an ongoing possibility. Although, strangely, in the Wembley replays before in the FA Cup final, 1981, 82 and 83, there was a penalty in normal time in each of those games, and they were all settled within the 90 minutes. Brian Robson, coming up to the centre, will remember the last one, 1984, 83, the replay between Manchester United and Brighton, which Manchester United won 4-0 and Brian scored 2 goals. There was a penalty that night from Arnold Muren, and the Manchester United captain, hoping to become the first man to lift the FA Cup 3 times at Wembley. And Gary Pallister's fitness battle was won after a lot of work by the physiotherapist Jim McGregor. I don't think Gary was out of Jim's room for the last 48 hours, but they finally got him ready. Mal Donaghy was standing by but wasn't needed in the end, so we'll see how Pallister goes tonight. And somewhere or other, there are so many balloons on the pitch that they're going to have to get rid of those. Now then, the tension on the face of the Manchester United manager perhaps reflects just how hard that decision was. To drop a goalkeeper who played in so many Scottish Cup finals for him, in the European Cup Winners' Cup final as well, the first choice Scotland keeper at the moment. He played in the last World Cup, Jim Leighton. That was a major decision by Alex Ferguson, and on it may hinge an awful lot of futures. We shall have to wait and see. Well, one of the spectators tonight at the age of 80, nearly 81 in fact, Sir Matt himself, who was born in the year that Manchester United first won the FA Cup, 1909, and has had some great years associated with the Old Trafford club. Will he see them win the Cup tonight, I wonder, for the 7th time, which would equal the record? Or are Crystal Palace going to put their name on the trophy for the first time in their history? Do you see, Trevor, any great tactical implications tonight compared to Saturday?
I would think both sides will start off exactly the same. I think from Crystal Palace's point of view, Mark Bright was a little bit isolated in that first half because he's used to playing with his old partner Ian Wright, and I think they didn't really join him enough, and they got their goal from a set piece, and their free play, there he is, clapping hands, probably thinking to himself, I hope I do get a bit more support, because I think he will depend on that, as they haven't selected right from the off.
Yes, I was talking to Mark Bright at the hotel last night. He was very disappointed in his own performance, actually, as was Andy Gray. They're hoping to do better tonight, but Manchester United in red and white have kicked off and are playing from right to left in the first half. And immediately Richard Shaw pushes in on Neil Webb, and Salako picks up McClair. That was how it was on Saturday. This is Steve Bruce, and there goes Mark Hughes. Andy Thorne was with him. That's the first foul of the night, and it was Steve Bruce who felt it. Bruce again. Offside, was he, Hughes? Palace with Barber on the left and Gray on the right. Normal formation there. And terrific crowd noise at the moment inside Wembley. That header was by Pallister. This is Shaw. Now O'Reilly. Well, just Mark Hughes at the moment up there for Manchester United. The others have all dropped back into midfield. O'Reilly. Looking for Gray, looking for Bright. Header there was by Jeff Thomas. This is Robson. It was Pardew trying to close him down. This is Bruce. Hughes had a fine match on Saturday. Barber. Ince. Phelan. Webb looking for Wallace. Flags up. Back The linesman was flagging for a foul up there where Wallace was, but the referee, I think, was already pulling play back deeper for an earlier offence. So Gary Pallister has made his way forward. Here's Robson. Bruce. Pallister. It was Andy Thorne who came round the back to clear for Palace. Gray's back there defending. So is Pemberton. Oh, a little bit off the ball. Gray and Hughes behind the referee's back. It's not to say he didn't see it. He turned quickly. This is Webb. Phelan. Flags up again. What's happening is John Pemberton has gone over to that side to mark Danny Wallace, and he seems to be getting tangled up with him, Trevor.
That was a little spillover from the first incident when Neil Webb was fouled Richard Shaw. Another foul took place out on the touchline, and just before Michael Phelan played the ball up to him, Danny Wallace shoved John Pemberton out the way, and the linesman, eagle-eyed, was watching the pairing, and that's why he got a free kick.
Thomas, Webb, Pardew, Shaw, blocked by Robson. So 5 minutes gone. Bright's there, so is Barber. Pardew closing in, and so was Mark Bright. And that's the first test for Les Sealey, and the United players are furious. It was a rough and tumble challenge, and I suspect it'll be in a booking. Mark Bright was the player who went in, and heavily he did too, and Les Sealey's stunned before he's really had a chance to make a save or get a feel of the ball. It's a booking for Mark Bright. Yellow card. Trevor.
Well, quite right. There was never any danger he was going to get the ball. And as you see, as the ball comes across, Les Sealey really, his first cross, looking to deal with it comfortably, and really went up with his feet and his hands. And to be fair, when you get a new goalkeeper, especially on a cup final replay like this, usually the manager and the players think to themselves, well, just test him out early on. But I think Mark Bright just reacted a little bit there, and quite rightly ends up in the book early on as well.
I think Matt Busby winced a bit. Years ago in the cup final, United had two goalkeepers injured, Ray Wood and Harry Gregg, back in the 50s. But fortunately, Sealey seems to be okay. That's Robson. Here's Lee Martin, number 3, left back. But that's not a bad ball at all for Brian McClair. Across the field. Hughes waiting. Oh, and well taken out by Gary O'Reilly. Wallace was also waiting to pounce. Here's Andy Gray. Bright's through the middle. Pardew just inside. There's Bright. Pallister. And Bright's up with the keeper again, and Les Sealey does well to hold on. They're really trying him out, aren't they? Putting a lot of nervous tension on him and shaking him up in the first few minutes. It's clear that that's a Palace policy. It's not strictly legitimate, but it's a test of nerve for Les Sealey, who, as I say, hasn't had much first-team football this season. Hasn't played at all for Luton, it might be said. But the two games he did play for Manchester United, both were won, so that might be an omen. Hughes, McClair. Lee Martin's header. Then Pardew, then O'Reilly. Looks for Bright. Pallister. Oh, well played, Robson. Really dug in there, Brian Robson. It was the long ball again from Martin. O'Reilly. Bright. Thomas. Here's Paul Ince in midfield for Manchester United, number 2. Sulako's challenge. Well, the tackles are flying in a bit, Trevor, aren't they?
Well, Steve Coppell might have left Ian Wright for that point, but in fact most of the tackles have come from Crystal Palace and the free kicks to Manchester United. And I think Manchester United have started much more positively. Well, they're only playing 10 minutes, but on Saturday I thought it was quite a lethargic start by them. But they asserted. Ryan Robson has set the tone, hasn't he, himself, with 2 or 3 crunching tackles. But they look a little bit more confident, where Crystal Palace, especially at the back, they've put a lot of balls back to the goalkeeper and not really confident. And it's a nasty little atmosphere developing at the moment.
Yes, there are 1 or 2 vendettas building up. Pardew was spoken to by the referee. Thomas seemed to throw the ball against somebody's face. And Brian McClair made a protest earlier about the challenge, which really started it all and gave the free kick away. They're trying to shake United up. Bruce and Pallister are waiting for the set piece. 4 and 6. That was Pallister, but he was knocked out of it, rather. Here's Martin. Robson, who's very busy in midfield or early on. Oof, that was a clattering tackle by Lee Martin as well, but they're helping him up, so there's no hard feelings there. Driven long there by Shaw. It's a Palace throw. Andy Gray to take the long throw. Looking for Bright. Goal kick.
Well, he has got some distance, hasn't he? There he is jogging across. He didn't go past defenders as I expected him to last Saturday. I think he'll be trying to do more of that this evening, but certainly those long throws are almost like a corner kick or a free kick. It gets great distance and great speed. They don't just hang in there, they go across very fast.
That was Sulako marking McClair. There's Hughes. Webb getting involved. Bright. Thomas and Pardew breaking from midfield here. Michael Phelan got a foot in. Free kick to Palace. Well, Gary O'Reilly is being urged to go forward. Bright is in there too. Pardew, Gray. Still Andy Gray. Bright pulling away a bit in the middle. O'Reilly. Solarco. Got robbed. Hughes. Leclerc on the right wing, Hughes on the left now. Wallace in the middle. They want support from midfield really, but it's still Wallace. And the support wasn't close enough. Pallister. Ince. Pallister again. O'Reilly. Robson, so much hinges on him tonight. Looking to lift himself again on the big occasion. Hughes gets bundled over. It was Andy Thorne, I think, wasn't it? Alec Ferguson's very unhappy about these tackles, Trevor.
Well, it was another bad tackle. Certainly being spoken to quite rightly, Andy Thorne, because it's the classic from behind through the legs, isn't it? I mean, the ball's played up to Mark Hughes. It's dropped in front of him. Here it is. Stevie Bruce drops it in. Mark Hughes comes to collect. There's no way through for the defender to get a touch with the ball without chopping the legs first. And that's what he promptly did. And for me, lucky to get away without being booked, and another one I'm sure he will be in.
I don't think Steve Coppell would have approved really of that sort of challenge. It's been fairly stormy this opening period in that respect. This is a free kick now to be taken for United, away by Pemberton. Martin. Bruce. Here's Robson. Pemberton. Corner, was it? Yes, it was out.
Just an indication of this little bit of extra nervousness in their play this evening, Crystal Palace. That was a straightforward back pass, which John couldn't put out.
Well, Leclerc's nearly on the line. Pallister's hoping to flick it on, and there is Pallister, in fact. Off Webb. Most unusual ricochet, but I don't think it would have mattered. The linesman was flagging for offside, I think.
He had a ricochet on Saturday that was quite significant, wasn't it? Mark Hughes' goal, and nearly another one there.
I think Neil Webb's actually a player on whom many eyes are focused for more reasons than one. Bobby Robson announces the squad on Monday for the World Cup, and he'll be hoping to be in the 22, but has still got a bit of fitness to prove. Robson. Barber. Forward by Pardew. Pallister with Bright. Lee Martin. Ince.
That was what you call a first aid ball from Paul Ince to Danny Wallace, and Danny Wallace, I think, is just letting Paul Ince know he wasn't too impressed.
This is Wallace again. Bright trying to get in front of Martin. This is Pallister. Thorne. Good running by Pardew from midfield, but the ball didn't come through to him. O'Reilly. Offside. Bright.
The Crystal Palace play really at the moment is very predictable. You've got Mark Bright, lone figure up there. They're trying to hit him with a long ball all the time, whereas Manchester United building up much better this evening from the back through the midfield, and definitely a contrast tonight in styles of football, which wasn't there on Saturday.
Yes, there's a more measured build-up, isn't there, about the United approach. That's Ince, but it wasn't very evident there. It's a question, really, whether they can lose their markers up there. There's Bright to Gray. There was a late challenge there. Free kick. Bright was fouled by Steve Bruce. Bobby Robson, second row from the back. He's made the newspapers today. My Dutch colleague, who's broadcasting for their national television station, seems to think there's some truth in the story about the possibility of PSV Eindhoven. Anyway, more of that another time. Les Sealey's got other things on his mind. A set play for Palace. Right in the thick of it there, Gary O'Reilly and Mark Bright. And Bright's there with Pallister. This is Pardew. Gray. O'Reilly's still forward. Martin. That's good defending. Webb played it a bit short, though. Play on, says Alan Gunn. Bright's making ground in the centre. It's too long for him. Webb. That's a good ball. McClair. Webb again. Ince. Oh, that's taken. That's offence. Number 2 for Alan Pardew. That's got to be a booking, surely. I think he knows.
Quite right as well. There was no question. Paul Ince had skipped, as you see, just toes it past the tackle, tries to ride it. Not able to ride that one. That was what, knee high, quite rightly, second Palace man in the book.
Well, they've got to be very careful here, because that's 2 players early in the game on cautions. And that was unforgivable, really, that challenge, because Ince would have been away. This is Martin to take the free kick for Manchester United. Short. Phelan. Hughes, a good header. McClair. Number 7, Robson. O'Reilly. Ince. Already there's been some pushing and shoving as a free kick again. And this is getting all a little bit bad-tempered, Trevor. It's a pity, really, because Saturday's game was played in such a good spirit.
Well, there, Gary O'Reilly just saying Mark Hughes, which he did. He came in late there. But to be fair, most of this opening period, it's been Crystal Palace trying to play their spoiling tactics. They've got that extra man in midfield, which is sure marking Neil Webb. And Manchester United decided to try and play it through the midfield this evening and bring Crystal Palace out. And they're playing very well at the moment. And I think Crystal Palace getting frustrated because they can't seem to get forward at all themselves.
Was on by Gray. Barber's in there. Pemberton. Gray. Bright. Salako coming in far side, so is Barber. There is Barber. Both the midfield players are in there as well, Thomas and Pardew. That was Thomas. This is Salako. Sealey makes his first good save. But he's got to work hard now at the set play. It's a corner kick. Now Thorne and O'Reilly have taken up the near post positions. Barber's on the goal line. Here's Bright. There's Barber. Thorne goes in with O'Reilly. Can Hughes break? Shook them off well. United are away with Ince. on the left-hand side, Neil Webb, number 8. And Inks has made a terrific run through the inside left position, but well checked by 2 defenders. Robson. Martin. Webb again. Not the cross that he was hoping to produce as Pemberton challenged. Well, there's the young man who came on with such devastating effect on Saturday, Ian Wright, but back on the bench to start tonight. Bright, Barber. Bright goes again, handball was it? Free kick given. Now there's danger here. Jeff Thomas and Alan Pardew and Andy Gray gathered round the ball. Gray would love a strike. 20 minutes gone and he's placing it. This is all part of the ploy by Crystal Palace to delay the free kick being taken. And it's Gray! Oh, saved by Seeley's legs! That's a good stop. It may even be a brilliant stop. There's a foul anyway. Now Palace are protesting because it seemed to me that Jeff Thomas was fouled. Now what's Alan Gunn given? Or was there an earlier offence? Or is it merely a throw-in? Crowd still buzzing with the save. It was Thomas who was fouled. It must be a free kick, surely, which it will now be. And Barber to take it. Now they've got Thorne still in there, and O'Reilly. And Bright. Bright gets to the back post, that's out, goal kick. And I think we can now praise Les Seeley, Trevor, for a fine save from Andy Gray.
It was a particularly good save. It's an awful wall that goes through the gap, and really, it was very fortunate for Manchester United. It was almost straight at Les Seeley. He fell on it well, it bounced off his knees more than anything, his shins, but he wouldn't have seen it because they had 6 in the wall, but it came right through the middle, and there'll be questions asked at half-time about that one.
Well, the wall was awful, wasn't it? The ball went clean through, as you said. Here's Pardew. Another free kick. The rhythm and the flow of the game is being constantly interrupted. But doubtless Seeley will gain some assurance from making that save. And maybe the men in front of him will too when they turned around and saw what happened. Oh, there's some pushing and shoving off the ball again there. It's with Webb at the moment, though. Well, Gray's come across to complain to the linesman because he's been involved in a scuffle with one of the defenders, all going on off the ball. And the referee needs eyes in his head at the moment. The back of his head, I should say, as well as in the front. But I think he works for an optical firm, Alan Gunn, so there'll be no problem there. So Riley, Gill, just give me the time again. They were about to take a free kick. Shaw. Oh, a mistake, McClair. Chance for United. Wallace offside anyway. Well, that was McClair sliding it in and Wallace putting it wide.
It was, in fact, Danny Wallace who was offside. Ryan McClair was okay, but it was a dodgy back pass, wasn't it, Richard Shaw?
Was indeed, and with half an hour gone then in this replay, the score is 0-0. And a good moment between Les Sealey and Andy Gray. Martin. So, quarter of an hour left in the first half. Free kick then to United. Pallister and Bruce are forward. On by Bright, there's Gray. Sulako's up there too, that's Phelan. Now Thomas. O'Reilly. Still all a bit disjointed. Sulako, Thomas, Ince, Robson, Shaw. Thomas to Barber. Break for Palace maybe. Bright through the centre. Sulako. Bright still waiting in the middle as Sulako takes on Bruce. And Bruce brings him down. Free kick. Oh, referee says no. Play on, said Alan Gunn.
Well, that was definitely a free kick. But at the moment, Crystal Palace, the last few minutes, just come into it a little bit more. And I think Manchester United just got a bit niggled by some of the tackling and have allowed themselves to indulge in it and try and mix it rather than concentrate on playing their football as they were for the first 25 minutes. That was what was frustrating Crystal Palace, and that's what they've got to get back and do.
Here's Bruce. Robson. O'Reilly with Hughes. Lee Martin. And again. Flags up for offside. Really, the free kicks have got in the way of this first half, I have to say.
Free kicks may have some tackles and also a few offsides creeping in now. You know, players are experienced enough. Crystal Palace in particular do play an offside game, and Manchester United have got to make sure that the front lads in particular do come out and don't get caught.
Bright's header on. Barber was hoping to feed on that. So someone's brought the lucky mascot along for Manchester United. Forward by Bruce. There goes Hughes. Pursued by O'Reilly. Wallace is on the far side. There are others coming up fast. If Hughes can keep his feet. He's tried to find Brian Robson. Andy Gray got back. Here's Bright with Pallister. Good interception. Bruce. And Robson's in there. And it came off O'Reilly. Ince tries to make it. Oh, that's a bad challenge again. Andy Gray. Well, Alan Gunn certainly got a harder game on his hands here than he had on Saturday. It's a free kick to United. Pallister has moved up, so has Bruce. Still Pallister and Bruce. Wait, Webb drove it! Oh, so close from Neil Webb. That came with 10 minutes left in the first half, and it was a good effort from the England player. Trevor.
That was a great free kick right over the wall, and there's a few the other side, possibly even on the bench, who might momentarily have thought they'd gone in the net, but it was a good kick, and certainly if it had crept in that near post, Nigel Martyn wouldn't have stood a chance, really, because he, quite rightly, he's covering the other side of the goal, and it was perfectly flighted just over the top of the wall.
So it's still 0-0 in this close cup final. Pallister, Ince. Well, United really are trying to play a bit tonight. They've got Webb going to the right now, being pursued by Richard Shaw, but they need support in the middle. And who's there? Brian Robson, of all people, of course, hooking it back in. Hughes couldn't make it. Amazing how Robson gets in there ahead of the strikers. McClair. Webb. Hughes. Well, the ground that Robson made there, Trevor, so typical.
Well, his best move, really, of the match so far. Great ball from Paul Ince midfield. He found Neil Webb, who whipped in a really good early cross, which beat everyone, really, as the defence is still coming back into the penalty area. And Brian Robson did get into that gap, got really an unkind bounce. It's one of those, when it's coming across, it bounced chest high, so he couldn't really get it under control in time.
Sulaco forward. Bruce. O'Reilly. Bright and Gray making the runs here. Martin. Webb. Oh, good challenge by Pardew. Bright. Gray. Ball's gone. There was a foul. There was a foul. Seven minutes left in the first half as Andy Thorne and Gary O'Reilly make their way forward for Crystal Palace. Bright's in there too. And that will be too far ahead of Thomas and Pardew. That's a Palace free kick that didn't work at all. Ince. Webb. McAllister. Hughes, Robson. Ince. Webb out to Phelan. Here he is again. And here's McClare. Webb. And again. Corners United. So there goes Pallister and Bruce again. Webb to take it. McClare's gone short. Pallister. And fairly easily claimed by Nigel Martyn. So 5 minutes left in the first half here in this FA Cup final at Wembley. Steve Coppell's team still locked 0-0 with Manchester United. And here's Bright, and Gray's run on. Robson is the man who's got back. And he gets a free kick. Foul by Bright. So Riley. Forward by Bruce.
Well, what with 4 minutes remaining, half-time is still something of a stalemate. And I suppose Stevie Coppell will be thinking of Ian Wright, but whilst his midfield and tactics are nullifying Manchester United and keeping it 0-0, he might be tempted to persevere, but there's no doubt that their options when they're trying to clear it from defence are very limited. And there's Mark Bright waiting and hesitating, hoping somebody's going to join him. And really, he is their only outlet, but they're finding it difficult to get the men supporting.
Well, it was a foul on Bright by Ince, so it's a free kick to Crystal Palace. O'Reilly has made his way forward again to join Mark Bright. Andy Gray's in there too. Salako to take it. Trying to hold the offside. There's O'Reilly, away by Martyn. This is Pemberton. And Martyn again, that wasn't what he intended. Oh, neither was... Oh, let's have it back then. Neil Webb playing a 1-2 off Mark Bright, I think. Brian Robson. Ince. 3 minutes left in the first half. Free kick to United. 0-0. Ince to Phelan. Well, Phil Barber was taking no chances there. It's a throw into United. Webb. Well, Manchester United have certainly put together the better attacks. There's a couple of minutes left in the first half, but as yet no sign of a goal. It's Neil Webb with the throw. McClare's in there and so is Ince. Did that go out for a corner? No, apparently not.
As you say, they've had most of the possession, Manchester United, but probably Les Celia's had to make 2 or 3 more saves. Crystal Palace's set pieces have conjured up probably the free kicks, the nearest we've had to a goal, but Nigel Martyn hasn't really had a clear-cut save that he's had to make.
Fair comment. This is Pemberton. Good challenge by Danny Wallace. Pemberton back at him straight away. Into the last minute of the first half then. Bruce. Phelan. McClare's made a run down the right, but that's not a good enough ball to find him. McClare. Corner given. Right at the end of the first half. Phelan's leaving it for Danny Wallace. Alistair is well forward. Bruce is in there. Here's Ince. Good play by Paul Ince. Tries to put McClare in. And Seeley waits for that to come through quite comfortably. He's been fairly well protected. And we're into time added on for stoppages at the end of the first half. And it's Paul Ince who's down. And there will be a moment's delay because the Manchester United physio is on the pitch. So it's a chance perhaps for you just to add to your half-time summary, Trevor, and tell us whether you see any change in pattern in the second half.
I'd be a bit concerned about Paul Ince because I think he's probably been one of the better players on display tonight. They worked very hard, good through ball just now. Seems to be something around the ankle area, and he's just coming up to half-time. We'll give him time to recover. But Manchester United, as I say, have had more possession. They've built through the midfield. There's Stevie Coppell making his notes. He made plenty on Saturday, but at the moment, I could only see Crystal Palace scoring really from a free kick, corner kick, or one of Andy Gray's long throws, because their general play are finding it difficult, as I say, to join Mark Wright. So it's a case of whether Manchester United, if things continue in the second half, can get that breakthrough, or whether Stevie Coppell decides to open things up a little bit and bring his extra striker Ian Wright on.
Well, he seems to be enjoying himself. We're well into stoppage time at the end of the first half, and there'll be a bit more now for the injury to Paul Ince. That's as the camera looks across from the far side by the Royal Box, and of course it's from there that the cup will be presented tonight in some or to one of these two teams, whatever happens in the second half, or indeed in extra time if we have it, with the possibility of penalties still looming large. Here's Robson. And Ince is not happy at all. He's hobbling, which might be a blow for Manchester United. He'll be glad to get back to the dressing room, I would think. That's any sign. Here's Webb. And Alan Gunn blows to bring the first half to a close. Not a particularly memorable one, I have to say. Very few scoring opportunities, if any. Alec Ferguson saw his goalkeeper make one save from the free kick by Andy Gray as the ball came through the wall, which would be a relief to Les Seeley, who seems to be quite happy and has shown good temperament. But the two teams still cannot be parted at this stage of the FA Cup final replay. At half-time, the score is Crystal Palace 0, Manchester United 0.
Well, clearly the selection of Les Seeley and his performance, the feature of that first half, and we'll come to that in a minute or two. But what was your overview of that first half, Jim? A bit more bite to it than Saturday, wasn't there?
Yes, there was, but I mean, what happened, and it's not an accident that the first half has been what it has been, and it wasn't an accident on Saturday. Both sides commit only one player up front, and they pack the midfield, which means you're going to get more collisions. I mean, we've come through the 4-3-3 to 4-4-2. Now we're 4-5-1. You know, and I know managers would argue that when they get the ball, a team's intentions to attack means that they can push the whole lot up. But that's not what's happening. You're getting the sort of football we've seen, a lot of collisions, a lot of free kicks, a lot of fouls, And it's the best moves have come from dead ball movements. How many fluent passing movements have you seen in the course of a game in that half? Not very many, and neither will you if teams start to play in the way they do. I'd like to make them run from King's Cross to Wembley before the match started, and then they wouldn't be able to run each other to death.
Bob, you were fairly critical on Saturday about Manchester United's approach in the first 20 minutes or so of the game. You couldn't criticise them for lack of commitment today, I should think.
No. In fact, I think they're less intense as well. Even people like Brian Robson on Saturday, I thought you could see it on his face. It was almost a nervousness, or whether it was the fact that they were so much the favourites. And tonight they're playing with a lot more composure, I believe, although, as Jim said, there are a lot of free kicks. Strangely, though, although they have a lot of possession, as Trevor Brooking made the comment, it's Crystal Palace who've had all the chances, really. Yeah. Only one free kick, and Nigel Martyn's not had a save yet,
Indeed.
actually.
Les Sealey has had a couple of saves to make, and he's brimming with confidence after them, isn't he? But let's take a look at the first one.
Well, he started with two good catches, and then he had this shot, which was really a dream, I think. Again, started from a dead ball movement, you see, before the ball comes down to Salako. Great shot, actually. Palace are very good at doing that. He didn't take a chance and catch it, Bob, and said, let it be safe just behind the line there. But again, this was from a dead ball movement, half a clearance, and there's the shot, swerving inside the post. It was going in, and Les Sealey said, well, I think, Bob, you would have saved that, wouldn't you? I'm not being unkind to my old mate Les.
It was a simple save, that one. Whereas the save from the free kick was an absolutely extraordinary save, because he didn't get a good sighting. There were bodies all over the place, and he did what goalkeepers should do if they're in trouble. He used his body as a barrier. It didn't matter whether he saved it with his backside, his ankle, his head.
He kept it out.
He kept it out, I think, with something like his shin.
Oh, right.
But there was virtually no sighting for it.
Trevor made the point about the wall was in some disarray there.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's a great strike from Andy Gray, and it really is. You've just got to think of it as a goalkeeper, just as a barrier, really.
But the wall,
what about that? I think he's won that ball very cleanly. I know there was a Palace thought that might have been a penalty, but here you see right through there, and it's a terrific save by that. It's an improvised save. It's not one that's in the books that says you've got to get your hands in a certain position. You just keep it out the back of the net and you're doing the job. And he got off, as Jim said, he got off to a
just have another look at that.
I think he played through for the ball there. Well, I think he's. I wasn't looking at that closely, to say the truth, at that moment, but there it is now. Well,
he hooked his leg, didn't he?
Yes, he was going outside the penalty area. It would have been arguably a penalty anyway, even if it had been given as a foul. But was the attempt for the ball? Probably was. But with Les Sealey, what's so funny about that is to see him, after his team has allowed the ball to come through the block, the old Les Sealey, not playing like as he has today, would have gone shaking his fist at that block, but he's so happy to be there on the field with a chance of a medal. Yeah, I don't think
he's having the best time of anybody out there
at the end of his career.
We've seen a couple of extraordinary incidents here on those two high crosses. I mean, if those had been in on Jim Leighton in his current lack of confidence, shall we say, it would have been a real tester. But Les went out there. Not only he hung on to them under pressure, and then after he'd cleared, even after he was injured, he turned round to the crowd, and we could see it because we were up here, and he was going to all the United fans, and he was pulling faces out. I mean, it's amazing character.
Let's have a look at Neil Webb's free kick now for United. It was a good one. And
yes, it was.
We thought it might have been in at one stage.
Well, yes, it was one of those from the other angle that looked as if it was in, but I think Nigel Martyn had it covered. Bob would say that. The goalkeepers' union, the post and bits outside it are always never going to be beaten by that. He had it covered. It was a very good free kick, and I'm sure Neil Webb will be in Bobby's Robson's 22.
I'm a little bit surprised, you know, Des, from the United front. Mark Hughes did it all by himself on Saturday and did it wonderfully well. But I think, like Wimbledon when they beat Liverpool, they created a shock, what they did with Dennis Wise, and it's now history that. I tonight would have expected, really, another man stuck up front alongside Mark Hughes, possibly Brian McClair, but something that created a real problem for Palace, and there's no problems for them at the moment.
Right. Well, we've got one or two members of the intelligentsia behind you there, Bob, so we'll move down now to one of the great heroes, the folk heroes of Manchester United. Bobby Charlton is with Barry Davies.
Well, Bobby, we've heard what the committee feel about it, what the uncommitted feel about it. What do the committee feel about it?
Well, it's never really been a game, has it? It's not really got going. It's what you expect Crystal Palace to do, what they've done. They've got behind the ball whenever they've lost possession, and whenever they've got near the goals, they've created free kicks for themselves, and it's caused us a couple of problems. What we've got to do, I think, is that you have to forget all the physical if there's anything physical that you're complaining about, which they shouldn't really complain about, they should get on with it. But they should get the ball down. I mean, this is a beautiful surface for playing on the floor. So that's the way we play when we play well. And I think that's what we've got to do. And I've no doubt that's what Alex will be telling them now. But it's very, very hard watching it, just trying to look at a good game when it keeps being spoiled and it keeps being stopped for all sorts of incidents. Not a great spectacle for the fans at the moment, but hopefully it'll get exciting on our side of home.
The Andy Bowman's answered a few questions about British beef, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it was tough out there, but it's a man's game, and you've got to get on with it. Sometimes we fall foul of referees by arguing a little too much, and you've got to get on with it. It is a man's game. Don't stop. Take it like a man and get on and do the best you can to put it right in the only way you can, which is to play good football and try and pop the ball in the back of the net.
Talking about taking things like a man, an awfully difficult decision for Alex Ferguson, for Jim Leighton and for Les Sealey.
Yes, I've been out of the country. I didn't get back till this afternoon, and up to then I didn't really know who he was going to pick. You can say that it's been justified in Les Sealey's performance, but it's a bit difficult to leave someone out, you know, who's a good professional and that a really top-class performance today would have made him forget everything that had happened last Saturday. But then again, that's the manager's job. They've got these decisions to make. He's made it at the moment. You know, it's been the right decision.
Bob, thanks very much.
Okay.
I'm not sure Bobby thought a great deal of that first half. But what can we expect from the second half now, do you think, Jim? We've got some good players on the bench, and substitutes have played a prominent role in cup finals in recent years.
Well, they have, and...
You've got Ian Wright.
Well, indeed. You know, we would have liked Palace to have started with him. Apart from anything else, it would have put two men up front. And Bob said he'd like United to have started maybe with someone else or anybody up front, so that they've got two players to attack from and build attacks. I mean, it's no different from Saturday. The pattern is exactly the same, but it will be better in the second half because players will have less energy to run. You know, their stamina will be sapped a little bit, so there'll be more space, and they'll begin to make passing movements, and we might get a goal if we get a mistake, as we did on Saturday, from one of the players, and the drama will unfold. But if you look at it clinically, you can't really say, coming there, to any young boy, you come and say, come and watch football played at Wembley. You couldn't say that there was anything there, really, that was spectacular. Maybe Ince a couple of times has just flashed into...
Bob, let's have a little word about Jim Leighton now. Not taking part in the match today. He's been dropped for the match. What does that mean for the future of United and for the future for Scotland in the World Cup?
Well, I think for Scotland particularly, it's a desperate position for Andy Roxburgh, because we saw last night Brian Gunn had a great chance in the game against Egypt to impose himself upon there in this situation, but he had a fairly unhappy game. So from the World Cup position, I think it's really desperate. For Jim Leighton, I'd love to know where he's watching this game at the moment. I really think his career must be over at United. And I think it was sad for him prior to the final to hear that United had already sounded out for other goalkeepers, which is true.
But as you say, Sealey was probably the right man because of brimming with confidence.
Astonishing character. He's playing wonderfully well. He'll probably, at the end of the day, unless those two subs are brought on, I reckon at the end of the day, he'll save Crystal Palace's last penalty and then he'll score at the other end.
It's even more important because of the penalties, the goalkeeper selection as well, because there's not much between the teams. There was nothing on Saturday. There's not been very much now. So there is a possibility of it going to penalties and it being Les Sealey, the hero of the hour, as you really predicted beforehand, but didn't have a chance to do it on air.
I hope one of both subs come on. I hope one of both subs come on.
It'd be nice to see them straight away.
Both of them.
Thanks, chaps. More from you in due course. Now let's enjoy a little music here at Wembley.
Well, the players have left the tunnel for the start of the second half. We shall see Manchester United emerging in just a few minutes. But while we're waiting, having had a chance to see again what happened after Les Sealey's save from Andy Gray, I do believe we had a penalty incident that needs to be looked at again. I actually feel, it's a personal view, Trevor, this on my part, that here we're going to see Jeff Thomas brought down by Brian McClair inside the area. And I think here there's a real clear-cut case for a penalty. I'm going to ask you whether you agree in a moment, but just watch this. The ball is in the area, the players are in the area. Now, did he play the ball first? Because I have to say this, a free kick was given, so the referee thought it was an offence. And if that's right, then it was inside the area, wasn't it?
Well, I must just say, I didn't think there was any doubt that it was a free kick. As you see, the ball comes out, and Jeff Thomas will just nudge it away. He makes the first contact. Brian McClair then slides in, definitely brings his left foot down. And at the time, my initial reaction, as was the linesman, was it probably was just outside the area. But there's no question that, in fact, contact was inside. And I must say, although probably at the time they were running away from the goal, there's not the danger. Strictly speaking, it brought down, it was a trip. And there's Brian McClair. At the time, probably very relieved, I should think, that it was given outside.
Well, that's one talking point, isn't it? But there's another one involving Paul Ince, because he doesn't look fit at all to me. He's going to try and run that off, I suspect, because just look at that. And they'll be worried about that in the United camp. Robson's checking with him again. And Paul Ince is in trouble. I suppose, looking back on that incident again, because we have to be fair to everybody, McClair might say that he made a legitimate attempt to toe poke the ball away from Thomas, but it happened inside the area, and from the point of view of the free kick that was then given, it possibly should have been a penalty anyway. It's all history now. Ince is trying to shake off his injury, and Alec Ferguson is looking very concerned himself, and I just wonder if they're saying to Ince, just run around for a few seconds and see if you're all right. The substitutes are Mark Robins and Clayton Blackmore, as they were on Saturday. And Robson and the manager are going to have a conference here, because Ince doesn't look happy at all. And the England and Manchester United captain is obviously going to be asked for his opinion.
The interesting selection, if he does come off, was whether he plays safe himself with Clayton Blackmore, does take a bit of a gamble, brings on the extra striker, Mark Robins.
Maybe they'll give it 5 or 10 minutes, Trevor, and just see, because he's not going off at the moment. So at the start of the second half, there's no score in the FA Cup final replay at Wembley, and Crystal Palace are playing now from right to left, and this is Lee Martin. Free kick given, and Mark Hughes, Gary O'Reilly. Hughes is all right again. Bruce is making his way forward. Driven long towards Hughes. He's trying to hold it up and turn. And bundled over, my word. This is Wallace. And there's a break on. If he can keep it in, and he has, and they're trying to get Thomas forward in the middle. And that's a good sliding challenge by Pallister to stop Bright. So it's a corner to Palace at the beginning of the second half, and Thorne and O'Reilly make their way towards the near post. Gray's in there as well. Gray and Sealey. Thomas wide again to Barber, and they're still queued up in the centre. O'Reilly's in there. Solarco. Brian Robson, the last man back. And now I think it's Mark Bright that's gone down following a challenge by Steve Bruce. Well, it's all rather hectic. helter-skelter stuff, and Steve Coppell's team still sticking to their original tactics. As the United fans try to lift their side, Webb is still being shadowed by Richard Shaw. There's no change in that. Sulaco still playing left back on Leclerc. Pemberton still marking Wallace. This is Pallister.
Again, as he's bringing it through, quite right, Gary Pallister, but as we're making the point with just Mark Hughes there, it's a little bit predictable as well.
Bruce. Robson's to his left. Well, maybe it'll be a defensive player that finally breaks through, because the lone strikers are pretty well marked, as Jimmy Hill said. They've got to get people up in support. Significantly enough, it was Sulaco who's playing left back who had that good shot in the first half, which Seeley did so well to deal with. There's John Sulaco. Here's Bright. So Gary O'Reilly able to go forward again here to support Mark Bright. In the thick of it in the centre there, you can see the two of them. Bright makes the first run, tries to get free, and does. Barber's coming in behind him, and the corner conceded by Michael Phelan. O'Reilly's up there, Ince with the overhead clearance, Wallace with a little flick, now McClare, and they've got players right and left, Manchester United. Phelan saw his opportunity, Mark Hughes screaming in the centre for the cross, and Phelan went all the way down the left, but he couldn't get the ball in where Mark Hughes was waiting. He was barking out there for an earlier ball.
Quite right, it was the early ball that was on. Probably Michael Phelan not on his favourite side on the left, and it would have been a long sweeping ball across the face of the retreating Palace defence that was required, and so favouring his right side, he decided to run with it.
5 minutes gone in the second half, it's 0-0 in the FA Cup final of 1990. Instructions are being passed out from the far side while Andy Thorne receives attention. Steve Coppell has been shouting to Andy Gray. As you can see, that's a little bit of management skill. I think he's giving him a bit of attention, but actually saying a few words as well, and Roger Milford, the reserve official, has waved him back. Andy Gray saw the funny side of it. So we're back in play here. Martin. Bruce. And there goes Hughes, trying to get behind Andy Thorne, and he has. McClare's in the middle. Oh, turned away by Gary O'Reilly. Hughes again. McClare's still there. Robson's in there too. Palace just saving themselves. It was a good move. Here's Lee Martin. Phelan. Good ball back to Phelan by Webb. Now Wallace coming near post. It's too long for Hughes and for McClare.
Two occasions there where Manchester United managed to get behind Crystal Palace. The first one, Mark Hughes, good ball across the face of the goal. Gary Riley did very well to hook it away. Could easily have sliced it or bobbled it back into his own net. And the second one, Michael Phelan did all the hard work, but hit the cross far too hard. Few supporters enjoying the game there.
Yes, the disabled enclosure part of the Wembley scene at the moment, and that's good to see. In this all-seater stadium, with its new 80,000 capacity. But there hasn't been too much to get them out of their seats up to now in the way of goal-scoring opportunity, although that last United attack did have promise. It was a good clearance by O'Reilly, actually. Here's Robson. Jeff Thomas, good play with his left foot. Ince challenging well as they scrap it out in midfield, and United come away with the ball. McClair. Wallace. Bruce. Alistair. Webb. This is Ince. And Robson's made a good through run. It's still Ince. He's trying to find a better angle. Wallace. Signs that Ince is back at full pace. Phelan. Oh, well, the linesman's flag. It's still Phelan, though. There was a foul, a bad foul, actually, when the ball had gone, but the referee put an advantage. United are protesting about that. I think it might have been Salako who brought him down. It's Danny Wallace. And Brian Robson's angry and Ince is angry because they think the free kick should have been given. But the linesman said foul. Alan Gunn saw that United still had Phelan in possession and wanted to play on an advantage. That's the reason for the argument. Now, Danny Wallace was the player who was hurt. Michael Phelan plays the first ball down the line. Now, there's the foul. But you'd see the flag up, and Alan Gunn says play on, and he was in a good position, Phelan, and United wouldn't have complained if a goal had resulted, so they can't have it both ways, can they, Trevor?
I totally agree with Alan Gunn, the referee. There's no doubt Michael Phelan had a couple of yards away from his marker and just couldn't quite get this cross in, but he should have really made it perhaps tell more than he did. But it was a nasty tackle. Salako, Danny Wallace, who for me has had a disappointing game because he's really the one winger, the one wide person, and half a dozen times when he's had a 1-against-1, he hasn't been able to go past his man, and that's really what he's in the side for.
10 minutes gone in the second half. Webb with the throw. McClair's in there, so is Ince. It wouldn't fall for him. Webb. And it wouldn't fall for him either as Barber clears for Palace. Bruce. Square of him is Pallister. As United keep possession, they could work it out the other side if he can find Hughes, and he can. Oh, well, oh, dear, oh dear. Gary O'Reilly, that's another piece of gamesmanship, I have to say. Hughes was turning away from his man, and it was a foul, as indeed was the one that was booked in the first half. It's O'Reilly, he's not been cautioned. And the whistles around the stadium reflect that the flow of play was broken up again, and Mark Hughes was the victim. However, it's a free kick to Manchester United this time. It's a test for Nigel Martin, maybe, as Pallister goes forward. Brian Robson has placed the ball. It's about 30 yards out. Robson. Bruce comes in. Couldn't get the touch on it that was needed. Thomas. Phelan. Looks for Hughes. Thorne is with him. And that's Salako.
Mark Hughes looking back, but really he and his Manchester United teammates have got to make sure they don't get ruffled like they did for a little spell in that first half. They've got to keep playing their football, because at the moment it's Crystal Palace who are trying to do the spoiling tactics.
Not all the fouls have been one way, I have to be fair about that. Was a foul by Brian Robson on the far side. So it's a free kick now to Palace. There's the Palace bench with Ian Branfoot and Alan Smith alongside Steve Coppell, hoping maybe that Gary O'Reilly or Mark Bright can get on the end of this. Barber's in there with them. O'Reilly was in the thick of it, so was the referee as it happens, Thomas. And a break by Webb, and they've got 4 up Manchester United here. To his right, Danny Wallace. McClare in the middle with Hughes. And not the cross you would want from Danny Wallace in that position, Trevor, was it? Really disappointing.
Well, he doesn't need to be told because, you know, didn't really even have to go past his man there. There was 4 Manchester United players who had all soared through into the penalty area. And really, you're just waiting for a cross, and he acknowledges 1 or 2 shouts. Come on, you can do better than that.
Actually, Danny Wallace has got a couple of old pals on the bench because the 2 Palace substitutes, Ian Wright used to play with him as schoolboys, and David Madden was at Southampton with him. But all of that's slightly incidental to a rather poor piece of finishing. Ballister. Now, are we going to see a goal in this Cup final replay? It's also very, very tight, isn't it? There's never been a 0-0 in a Wembley FA Cup final, up to now. Here's Gray, Brian Robson bustling in, then Lee Martin. And Gray appeals to the referee, he's angry now. In fact, it's all a bit tense, isn't it, Trevor?
Well, he got the free kick, I'm not sure what he was complaining about there.
Ince having to hurdle another tackle, and now McClare, he's into the centre much more in the second half. You know, he's moved in from the right hand side, Brian McClare, and he's having some good play and some good touches. This is Wallace, Webb, Lee Martin from left back, an inspired run on the far side, a chance here and a goal. What a tremendous run! Manchester United have taken the lead, and Lee Martin made a run from left back that was, what, 40, 50 yards, took it on his chest and smashed it with his right foot past Nigel Martin, and after an hour's play, Manchester United are in front in the Cup final because Andy Gray couldn't get to him, and it's the roof of the net. And Lee Martin, I only ever remember him scoring once before in the first team, Lee Martin. Certainly it wasn't this season. And United have taken the lead after 1 hour's play. But wait a moment, here's Bright. And here's Pardew. And Brian Robson gets knocked over. That's a free kick, and it's a chance to say to Trevor Brooking, what about the goal? It was a man from the back, wasn't it?
Quite right, and really, I would think that 50-yard pass by Neil Webb has probably booked his ticket to the Italy World Cup. It was a magnificent pass. Lee Martin did very well to chest it, kept his head, rifled it into the roof of the net, and possibly, as that ball switched play brilliantly, chested it down. Andy Gray just had allowed him to get the wrong side of him. He's just about to put his hands on his head because he knows he just lost concentration briefly there. There's Brian Robson exercising his shoulder. Let's hope that's not his World Cup one of 3 or 4 years ago. But
I think we ought to have another look at that, Trevor. You know, this could be the Brian Robson shoulder unless he's careful. It was a high challenge, in my view, by Mark Bright. And Brian went down in a real heap. And it looks to me as though Jim McGregor has got him back on his feet. But there was a moment when I think Bobby Robson's heart would have stopped there, when Brian went over, particularly on that shoulder.
Of course, what the goal does mean is that we're going to see Ian Wright again. I mean, a bit like Saturday, it was 2-1 then, now it's 1-0. Stevie Coppell, while it's 0-0, had been reluctant to have made the change, and there he is, exercising, and I'm sure within a minute or two, he's got to be added into the fray.
Well, for the moment, Lee Martin is the hero of Wembley. A lad from Hyde in Cheshire, right on United's doorstep. The local boy has scored. 22 years of age. And more trouble now involving Mark Hughes. The yellow card's out again. And this has been, by cup final standards, a bad-tempered game. Make no mistake about that. There were bookings in the first half for 2 Palace players, Bright and Pardew, and now it's Mark Hughes, who was involved in a scuffle off the ball, just lost his cool completely. Salako. They've got Jeff Thomas in there and Barber. Header out was by Michael Phelan, and now Danny Wallace. Manchester United with the crowd right at their backs now, 1 up. But then we did say on Saturday in this cup final, never speak too soon. There's a lot more to come, I'm sure. But what a great ball it was, so Steve Coppell would have to admit, I think, by Neil Webb, that got Lee Martin in. That was smashing football, an excellent crossfield pass, direct play, but a good finish too. Robson, Bruce. Towards Hughes and O'Reilly again. McClair. Hughes sends McClair to the left. Hughes in the middle with Webb and Robson. Goal kick. Well, here's the lad who made the difference when he came on in the first game, and it's going to be a similar substitution. Barber off and Ian Wright on. Can he do the trick again for Crystal Palace? He'll play up front with Bright. Change of formation possibly. Although we'll have to see if they leave Shaw on Webb. But Webb's got away once and it could be vital. It was his pass. Wallace. Thomas. Bright. So he has a chance again. We're 20 minutes into the second half here. Manchester United lead Crystal Palace by 1-0. The left-back, Lee Martin, is the scorer. Here's the right-back, Michael Phelan. Webb. McClair. And Robson didn't quite make the tackle. Here's Ince, who seems to have shaken off the injury. Phelan. Ince again. McClair. Oh, they almost got Robson in there in a forward position, and Hughes. They've changed the formation, Manchester United, haven't they, Trevor? Danny Wallace on the right wing, and McClair much more involved in the central position.
Well, he's in fact playing sort of half and half. Not really, certainly in midfield, but not up front, and it's been difficult to pick up, but it has caused Crystal Palace 1 or 2 problems because they're not sure who to pick up at the back.
Here's a throw for Palace, Gray to take. So it's the old combination, Bright and Wright up there for the South Londoners. Andy Gray with the long throw. Gary O'Reilly's making his way forward as well. That is O'Reilly. McClair, valuable defensive work, and a free kick given. There was a shove when the ball had gone.
Richard Shaw and John Salako just had a little chat then, and they've decided to revert as they did on Saturday. Richard Shaw going back now to left back to mark, in fact, Danny Wallace, and John Salako pushing up on Michael Phelan, which I think they have to do at this stage. They've got to get width either side to try and get some service in to Bright and Wright.
Good turn by Hughes. McClair to his left. It's Mark Hughes. Oh, it got a deflection off the defender, and Nigel Martin just keeps it in play and dives at the feet of Brian Robson, who's everywhere at the moment. Webb. Driven forward by Thorne. Bright's there, but Pallister was ready for Seeley to come and accept it. Incidentally, if you're waiting for the mid-evening news, it will follow the FA Cup final, in which the score is 1-0 to Manchester United. They're looking for an offside, and they've got it against Webb. Well, are Manchester United going to make it 7 wins in the FA Cup? Sir Matt Busby certainly hopes so. They're in front at the moment. In this, their 11th FA Cup final, equaling that particular record. But Crystal Palace will have other ideas. There are 4 of them gathered around here in the middle for this free kick for where it drops. United have decided to try and push up a little bit. Gray and Bright and Wright closing in as Pallister half clears. Corner. Corner kick. Thorne and O'Reilly are on the post. Wright is in there, so is Gray. O'Reilly, oh, it didn't run for him. He scrambled against Seeley's legs. And very, very close. The goalkeeper takes credit again. Les Seeley was in the right place. Andy Gray, I think, was the player that almost scored for Steve Coppell's team there. I think it was his low shot that Seeley just got to in the crowd. It was very, very close. You can see from this, watch Gray number 4 there in the crowd. There's O'Reilly. It comes off Webb. That's Gray. It was Gray. Bruce, Seeley, maybe even a post. Offside. Well, there are 20 minutes of normal time to go. He's looking anxious. What do you think, Trevor?
Well, I think Les Seeley used his feet again well there, didn't he? With it, just Andy Gray would be a little bit disappointed because he just got tucked underneath him and he couldn't get a lot of power. It was a sort of stab shot which enabled sort of Seeley to block it. I think Manchester United mustn't just sit back and try and hang on to the 1-0. Crystal Palace obviously got to push extra men forward, and after what we've seen so far this season, these last 20 minutes are still, without any conviction, going to say who's going to win this one.
This is Pallister trying to cover for Wright. Bright tries to close in. Brian Robson, another one of those life-saving tackles. Just look at that. The man's energy absolutely limitless. Now, Hazard's got the same stamina. He's charging forward. Hughes to the left. And turned back by Pemberton. Webb tries to find Wallace. Well played by Danny Wallace. Hughes! No, good challenge O'Reilly. Now Thomas for Palace. To Salako. Now that's aimed at Ian Wright, and Seeley will need to judge the bounce. Oh. Thorne, Ince. O'Reilly and Hughes. Ince. Can he take it on from here? Maybe Webb can. It's Neil Webb's shot. Now, Neil Webb made the goal. No question about that. And it really was good appreciation of what was happening on the other side of the pitch, because what was happening was Lee Martin had sneaked in ahead of Andy Gray, and that's a fabulous move really by Manchester United, the best of the match, and it was seen what was on by the England player. Well, that wasn't very charitable either, was it? Andy Gray on Les Sealey. 1-0 then to United is the situation here. In the replay. Can Palace pull it round? This is Webb. And Leclerc's made a very good run from left to right. He's in the box now. Just squeezed his shot in, but without any power. Solako. Throw into United. Well, just look there, Alec Ferguson. He thought he was close at 2-1 on Saturday, but he was robbed of the FA Cup then. It's 1-0 now. Can Manchester United hold on this time, I wonder? Or will he step in again? Forward by Webb. Danny Wallace. Robson going through the centre-forward position. It needs to go left, really. And it did go left, but good running by Brian Leclerc, who's having one of those indefatigable games. His stamina, one of the best among modern players. Shaw. Now Webb. Goodness me, that's a good run by Neil Webb. He's beginning to show that he's recapturing a bit of the sharpness, Trevor, isn't he?
Well, he is, and of course now Richard Shaw's gone back to left back. He is really the extra man in midfield, and all Manchester United have got to do is funnel it through him all the time. From Crystal Palace's point of view, because the onus is on them, they're hitting those long balls at the moment, aren't they?
Here's Bright. And Sealey has gone down. But the goalkeeper, as Bob Wilson was saying, showing no sign of nerves, and referee wants a word with Mark Bright about the challenge on him. Bright, bear in mind, was cautioned in the first half, and Les Sealey needs attention.
I think it was close enough for the forward to feel he could just dive in, especially when you're 1-0 down. There, as you see, he's just got that side of him. Les Sealey's always going to just make it, but once you slide in like that, there's no way of pulling on the brakes, and Les Sealey will have felt it. But at 1-0 up, I think he's quite enjoying the evening and won't want to go off at this stage. But I think Crystal Palace's service into the front two has been disappointing. They're hitting a lot of long balls, and really, I think Wright in particular is very good at turning and running at people. But at the moment, he's not had a decent ball into feet, and that's how I think they're going to have to play to his strength.
She's got a good view, hasn't she? Not sort of bad view at all of this FA Cup final. In the evening setting now of Wembley Stadium, as Les Sealey, this unlikely hero, if it works out that way, who was brought into the side in quite unusual circumstances as an on-loan goalkeeper. Alan Gunn is making quite sure that he's okay to continue. Well, the United fans are already singing their songs. It may be premature, because as we've seen in the semi-final and on Saturday, you don't take anything for granted against Crystal Palace. That was off the head of Andy Thorne. Well, I wonder whether the two England players in midfield can keep their grip on this match. Webb with the throw, Robson making the run. They're very involved. can see them there, look. Flags up. Yes, Brian Robson was fouled. He's right in the thick of it, as always. Now, Mark Hughes and Brian McClare are over on the far side of the area where Robson is going now. Neil Webb to take the free kick. They're not risking anybody else forward. Significantly, Bruce and Pallister have stayed back for this one. Robson! Oh, against the bar! And nobody able to seize on the rebound for United, but Lee Martin did in the end, and Robson's there again. Well, I don't know what you can say about the England captain that hasn't been said so many times before. So close to making it 2-0. Here's Salaka. Handball, they shouted. Well, that would have been all over, wouldn't it, if he'd put that one in, Trevor?
He's had an excellent game, Brian Robson, very inspiring. It was a magnificent header when you think Gary Pallister and Steve Bruce weren't up for the first time and they suddenly got a header in the penalty area.
Wallace's cross, and it's going away harmlessly. Well, this is the free kick taken by Neil Webb, one England player. We were just mentioning the pair of them a moment ago. Here's Robson, who wins it really well, and the goalkeeper, well, he was a spectator, Nigel Martin, because the header was so good, but it came back off the bar. Right, offside. He's offside. It was Andy Gray who was through. They were off their seats back there in the crowd, but the linesman on the Royal Box side, Larry Watson, was flagging. Well, Manchester United must make sure they don't flag now, because the FA Cup is a little nearer, perhaps even than it was on Saturday, to Old Trafford. They think so. Offside. Just over 10 minutes of normal time, and David Madden's going to come on in a moment for Crystal Palace. I think it's John Salako who's going off. So Madden has 10 minutes in which to try and help force extra time. O'Reilly's still well forward, so is Bright. He took a tumble. Phelan wants it to run, but he'll have to play it at some point. Andy Gray storming across to try and take the long throw, I think. Bright and Wright are staying in the box, shaping up to face the thrower. Seeley comes with a punch. Madden drove it. Gray again. Back in. And McClare needs to do something here for United. Didn't he just? Anyway, there was a free kick given.
Good defensive header just now as well by Gary Pallister. He's had a much better game this evening. I think there was some doubt with his ankle, but I think Alex Ferguson will be relieved that he is fit, because he's had an excellent match.
This is Webb. Wallace, Ince, who's actually shaken off his injury in the second half. Webb again. Phelan. Forward by Richard Shaw. Bright's up there again, so is Gray. This was gone, there was a foul. Palace again just leaving the foot there. It was Gary Pallister who was injured.
But again, the strikers for Palace are having to really fight for, well, 50-50 balls at best, and really they're cannon fodder for United defenders. I would like to see them just vary it, and not one or two in particular to Ian Wright's feet. At the moment, he's come on and really hardly had a touch. When you think of the devastating effect he had on Saturday, this evening there he is. I mean, probably just really he hasn't been able to get in the game at all. And whilst people are saying, well, why didn't you touch the ball? The service into him hasn't been good.
Header was by Thorne, then O'Reilly. This is Thomas. Oh, well, that was Phelan to Bruce and back again. Ince. Wallace has gone to the right. It's still Paul Ince taking them on. Just going one too many against Andy Thorne, who beats him. There are 7 minutes to go of the 90. It's Manchester United 1, Crystal Palace 0 in the FA Cup replay of 1990. Scorer Lee Martin on 60 minutes. Ince.
The trio there, Paul Ince, Neil Webb and Brian Robson, has been much more influential as a unit this evening than they were on Saturday, and I think that's been the key area tonight, because it's given them the domination and the composure to knock it from the back and build up slowly, and certainly I think that's been the important area.
I think also McClare's played really well. I don't quite know what that means in Scotland terms, but you'd think he was a contender for the World Cup on this form. This is Wallace. Webb. Still Webb. He was just waiting in the centre. And there are 6 minutes to go, and it's a goal kick. Well, so much has happened on the road to Wembley this season in front of our cameras. Semi-finals and finals full of fluctuating moments. We can't say that this is over yet. Crystal Palace have got Wright, Bright and Gray operating as a trio up front now. That's Pallister. Got a whack for his trouble. This is Madden. Oh, look at that going on there. It's Andy Gray and Gary Pallister. Bright says get on with the game, which is pretty good advice. Andy Gray seems to have lost it a bit. But it's wide to Pemberton, and there's trouble here. Oh, he's overrun it. Well, that was going to be a promising moment, I think, Trevor.
Yes, he's in such a hurry to try and get into good position, get the cross in, but a little bit tense, and it really went over the touchline comfortably. Perhaps the early cross was the one there, because Manchester United are pushing up, trying to play the offside themselves, and if you whip them in early, there's a little exchange that has been going on for a minute or two, isn't there, between Pallister and Gray. Perhaps Pallister suggesting, reminding Andy Gray what the scoreline is. In those circumstances, that's sometimes tossed in.
Well, I think what happens, Trevor, is Andy Gray has got a fairly low flash point, and he is known to sort of just occasionally get carried away, and Gary Pallister and he were at it a bit there, which Alan Gunn knew, and I think just wanted to take the sting out of the situation, really. It hasn't been as easy for the referee tonight as it was in the first game. He's done pretty well, I think. Danny Wallace and Richard Shaw. McClare. Good challenge by Pardew. 4 minutes to go of the 90. I keep saying of the 90 because don't forget we're still in with a chance of extra time if Palace score. This is Bruce. Madden. Shaw. That's Bright up there, lurking. Phelan. But Alex Ferguson his heart must be thumping when he knows how near he is now. Thorne, O'Reilly. Phelan's got to watch right, he's still full of invention. Madden, well played by him. Gray. Pemberton. Bright in the middle with Wright. United win it and work it. McClare, Not a very good ball for Hughes. That was really given away. Just when I said how well McClair was playing, he's in a bit of trouble, and that's offside. 3 minutes, Trevor.
Well, there's a man, I'm sure he knows. There he is, just checking, make sure it hasn't stopped, but it is still ticking away, Alex, I assure you. But those 3 minutes will take a long time to go past. But I think overall on the game, you have to say United deserve to be ahead. I mean, Crystal Palace have had a wonderful cup run, and themselves on Saturday came so close, what, 6 or 7 minutes? There they were ahead 3-2, and then Mark Hughes got them back. But tonight, I don't think they've played as well, as confidently, and has really given the ball away too quickly. They've not been able to string a few passes and settle on the ball themselves at all.
This is Gray. All the way back to Martin. We make it 2 minutes. This is Wright. Forward by Thorne. And they're piling in on the far side here, and Manchester United have got a bit of defending to do yet. That was Lee Martin, the goal scorer, who got the ball away. Steve Copper was the man who threw it back, not surprisingly. That's Bright with the flick on, away by Pallister. Now, can it be held here? Oh, that's good football by Mark Hughes. This is Michael Phelan. Wallace. Trying to hold it up a bit for United. Well, Wallace thought it should have been a corner. The linesman said no. There's a minute to go. Still, they've got the three lined up front, Crystal Palace. That's aimed at Bright, and it's flicked on, looking for Gray. Ince. Webb. They're trying to cut off the pass back, but Les Sealey was ready for it.
Yeah, one feature of tonight's game, which I haven't enjoyed, has been most of the players have always, whenever a decision's been given, have felt they've got a back chat, the linesman or a referee, and I hope all the watching youngsters looking in at the game tonight don't try and copy that, because it's not been a good example this evening.
Celebration has started up there. He still knows so much about the game that he won't take it for granted yet, Sir Matt. Shaw. Ince. Madden. We've played the 90 minutes, we're into stoppage time. Jeff Thomas challenged by Paul Ince. Thorne. O'Reilly. Now Gray is chasing this, so is Bright there. And there's Wright with a chance. Wright, side netting. And it might be fair to say Les Sealey had it covered anyway. But their hearts would have been in their mouths down there. Archie Docks and Alex Ferguson. Brian Kidd makes a point from behind. But look at this here. Ian Wright still a threat. Yes, he had it covered. Alan Gunn checks his watch. Robson for United. And Hughes chasing. And what's going to happen here? Well, he's running to the goalkeeper. We've played a minute of stoppage time already. The referee says to Mark Hughes, calm down. Flag up on the far side. Offside. It isn't the final whistle. It's an offside. Manchester United have won the FA Cup and equalled the record of 7 outright wins. Palace slumped to the ground. Manchester United celebrate Alex Ferguson's first major trophy at Old Trafford. Thanks to a goal by a home-produced player. He spent £13 million and the man who got the goal didn't cost a penny. The England captain outstanding. And Manchester United have the time to console unhappy Palace players who've given so much on Saturday, but Steve Coppell's team finally made to look second best as the Manchester United supporters salute a most unlikely man with a Cup Winners' medal, Les Sealey. Who would have believed this a week ago? He came in place of Jim Leighton and did everything that was asked of him. And an on-loan goalkeeper facing a free transfer has won an FA Cup Winners' medal. And just look at that man's face. The years seem to have fallen away there from Alex Ferguson after a season of torment and tribulation. He embraces his players because this victory, well, they had to win it in many ways, didn't they, Trevor? And Pallister came through as well with flying colours.
Well, I think the experienced men did him proud this evening. Gary Pallister, I thought, had an excellent game at the back, won a lot of the balls in the air. And to be fair, Crystal Palace did concentrate on hitting the long ball in, and with his height, Gary Pallister did dominate there. But Brian Robson, as I say, Neil Webb will be pleased. But there, Lee Martin, I wouldn't like to know what the odds were on him being the opening goal scorer tonight, but I shouldn't think there's going to be many collecting their winning bets.
And we got a glimpse there of the famous old trophy, didn't we? The road to Wembley is finally over, and Sir Matt Busby sees Manchester United win the FA Cup at Wembley that is, for the 6th time, and that in itself is a record. For Andy Gray, there's only desolation. Palace players, some of them in tears. They didn't play as well tonight as they played on Saturday, or indeed anywhere near as well as they can play. But Manchester United, who produced some good football in trying circumstances, have won the FA Cup again. And the biggest fan club in the world, they call it, salutes Alex Ferguson. And here's another moment of history, because Brian Robson becomes the first captain in the history of the FA Cup to receive the trophy 3 times for one club, and certainly the first at Wembley to pick it up 3 times. Captain of England, captain of Manchester United, Captain Marvel, 33 years of age. An outstanding personal performance again as he leads the team up the steps before leading England in the World Cup. That's the other side of the story. That's an ex-Manchester United supporter, John Pemberton, but not happy with the fact that they've won tonight for obvious reasons. So Brian Robson goes up to receive the most famous trophy in football for a record 3rd time. Manchester United equal the record of Aston Villa and Tottenham Hotspur. They win the FA Cup for the 7th time. Behind Brian Robson come the other players with the winners' medals. Mark Hughes, Les Sealey, he can't believe it, look at that. Extraordinary story, isn't it? Really is. Neil Webb, who made the goal and may have made the World Cup 22. In the picture there. Steve Bruce, Michael Phelan, Danny Wallace. And as for Lee Martin, he couldn't have believed, surely, that he'd be the man to score the winning goal. Gary Pallister came through, and Brian McClare, as Palace sportingly applaud the victors. I would feel probably it's relief that Manchester United are experiencing just at the moment, as well as elation. That trophy's been a long time coming. No need for extra time, no need for penalties. The Cup won tonight in 90 minutes by Brian Robson's Manchester United. And now the losers going up for their medals. Jeff Thomas, a Manchester boy himself. Well, they offered so much in the FA Cup this season, especially in the semi-final, and again on Saturday. But in the end, it'll be losers' medals for Crystal Palace, as Jeff Thomas leads them forward. The first medal he's had since he was a 10-year-old schoolboy, he was telling me, but it's not a winner's medal. Nigel Martin, Andy Thorne, who won with Wimbledon but loses here. Gary O'Reilly, who scored in the first game. They're chanting Steve Coppell's name, the supporters, because they appreciate that this really is something of a fairy story, even getting to Wembley. And the players have got a lot to look back on as they prepare to go on a tour to the West Indies. But my mind just focuses on the man who scored the goal, because if there was an unlikely player to get the winner, it was left-back Lee Martin, and I think Barry Davies has caught up with him already.
Lee John Watson said an unlikely player, but obviously a delighted one.
Yeah, I can't believe it's happening, really. Cracking game all around, and just to finish it off like that for me is absolutely brilliant. I can't believe it yet.
It was a marvellous move, actually, from one end to the other. I mean, undoubtedly the best move of the match.
Yeah, there was a lot of passing involved early on, and when he got the ball, I started my run. When he knocked it over the top, Stormy in front of him, I just brought it down my chest and stuck it in the back of the net.
You must have been saving up that one, didn't you?
Yeah, that's the first one I've scored this season, so I've been saving it all season, yeah.
Oh, well done, couldn't be a better time.
Thanks very much.
Well done, Barry Davies. That was about the quickest interview I've ever heard with a cup-winning goal scorer, I think. And he's going to join in the celebrations now. Brian Robson's waiting, I think, for them to take the team picture down to the left and then to do the lap of honour. But Lee Martin, actually a boy from Hyde, not far from Old Trafford, who's been at the club since he was a 12-year-old. So it's quite a romantic tale, this. And although he plays left-back, he is a good two-footed player, and he put it away with his right tonight, but they don't care how he scored it. They are the FA Cup holders. Mark Robins there didn't play a part tonight, didn't use the subs Alex Ferguson. And the team that he picked, and in particular the gamble on the goalkeeper, Trevor, really paid off.
Well, fully justified, isn't it? I mean, Les City is one of those laid-back characters. You could see he seemed to be enjoying every minute. Made one or two telling saves. Strange enough, not with his hands, with his shin, knee and feet. But as you said, Bob Wilson, you know, whatever part of the body you stop it with, and there's a reassuring cuddle from somebody, and I'm sure he's going to enjoy this evening's celebration. But it was a terrific choice. I swore on occasion like this, you must just spare a thought for Jim Leighton, who I'm sure he's pleased the team has won, but it must be a sort of mixed emotions for him.
Yes, it would be, and they're just comparing their medals there. That's the third team on the pitch, isn't it? The referee and the linesman. And I would say overall they had a good couple of matches. As Manchester United celebrate, I would just say for Palace, I think we ought to try and tidy up the loose ends. There was a penalty protest in the first half that might be debated, but it's a little bit of history now, because with the reserves there who didn't play joining in, Manchester United have the usual picture taken for the group of photographers down there. And Les Seeley salutes the crowd, and off the back of this FA Cup win, I would imagine Alex Ferguson's job secure, and a chance maybe to pitch for the Championship next season. We shall see. As for the losers, well, they've made lots of friends, and they've made lots of money as well, the club itself, I mean, from these two Wembley appearances. But obviously, it's never easy when you've lost a prize like that, and it's something which those lads are really going to enjoy celebrating tonight. Manchester United supporters from all over the world watching these pictures, and one or two players like Paul Ince, who joined the club because they believed they would win trophies. Well, one has come along perhaps a little quicker than they realised. Michael Phelan, another big signing there, number 5. Gary Pallister cost £2.3 million. Well, they'll have paid for that possibly out of the receipts from this cup final. Mark Hughes, terrific on Saturday, maybe quieter a bit tonight, but still very influential. And, well, I mean, he is just absolutely shattered now, probably mentally, I would think, all that's happened to him overnight and today.
I wonder if he'll ask Alex Ferguson if he's going to make this on loan move permanent. He might feel he's earned it tonight.
Well, there's a man who's distinguished himself and won great respect as a manager this season. 34-year-old Steve Coppell. He knows what it's like to win the cup with Manchester United. He did it in 1977, but tonight they've beaten his side. And as the goal scorer Lee Martin holds up the trophy, the final score in the 1990 FA Cup final replay, Manchester United 1, Crystal Palace 0.
Well, we wonder if this just might go down as the Les Seeley Cup final. It's been a great competition along the way. We've had bags of goals. Tonight we had to be content with just one. It was scored by a man who was 50-1 against scoring, and
It turned out to be his first goal of the season.
And now McClair, he's into the centre much more in the second half. You know, he's moved in from the right-hand side, Brian McClair, and he's having some good play and some good touches. This is Wallace. Webb. Lee Martin from left-back, an inspired run on the far side. A chance here, and a goal! What a tremendous run!